Hi guys, happy World Lupus Day. My name is Venetia and I was diagnosed with lupus at the age of 25 in 2018 in my final year of university. In simple terms, lupus is when your body's immune system can't differentiate between a healthy cell and an invader and attacks both. Therefore, any organ can be affected. The symptoms vary largely and therefore getting a diagnosis can be extremely difficult. Some of the main symptoms with lupus is joint stiffness, hair loss, mouth ulcers, fatigue, increased risk of cardiovascular diseases, kidney involvement, and the list goes on. My journey with lupus started after a short trip to Malaga. I had returned from the trip and started feeling pretty unwell. I started missing uni and luckily my friends had turned up to my flat because I had missed clinics that day and I wasn't responding to my calls. When they turned up to the flat, I was in a really bad state and they took me straight to A&E. It was within minutes that I was transferred to Majors and I started getting treatment for something called a central nervous system infection. I didn't know what was going on and I had told them not to tell anybody, especially my family, because I didn't want them to worry. Sooner we found out that I actually had aseptic meningitis and that the treatment was for that. I was treated and discharged a couple of days later. I never felt myself after the meningitis treatment. I started developing Raynaud's, my mouth started breaking and I kept finding myself going back to A&E and getting dismissed every single time because nobody knew what was actually going on. I was then referred to a rheumatologist, but the waiting times was extremely long. I then went back home to London for Easter. My parents had one look at me and said, "We didn't realise how much weight you had lost and you need help urgently." My dad managed to find a private consultant rheumatologist in London the very next day and I managed to go and see him. I kept saying to him, "I think I've got a disease called Behçet's," which is something that I had read online because of the mouth ulcers. He said, "I don't think you have that, but I'm pretty sure you've got something called lupus. I need you to carry out these blood tests and that will confirm whether you have them or not." Very quickly, I got the blood tests done and my bloods showed this condition. I really had no idea about lupus apart from the very little that I read about it at university in one of the lectures. About 55% of people diagnosed with lupus actually haven't heard about the condition prior to their diagnosis, which is quite large. To be very honest, I didn't take my diagnosis very seriously. I was able to continue my life quite normally after my diagnosis because the steroids were like a magic pill. And I'm sure those of you who are on them understand that. But it was last year where a lot had changed in my life and stress started to really take an impact on my condition. My flare-ups were non-stop. I was on steroids constantly and it started to impact my mental health quite a bit. From being able to do everything on my own and being quite independent, I had to rely on my mum for simple tasks like showering and helping me wash my hair, which I never thought or imagined I will need at the age of 31. I no longer recognised the person that I was. My hair loss, my weight loss, everything about me had changed dramatically in that 1 year. And I started sharing my story on Instagram, not only to raise awareness, but also to help others who are in similar positions or who have had recent diagnoses, because I know when I was looking, there wasn't much out there. It's so easy to feel isolated in this process, no matter how many people you have around you. Your friends, your family will always love you. But the thoughts that you go through from the morning to the evening is one that is very, very difficult. I've been able to connect with some really incredible people through my Monzo versus Lupus page, sharing stories, sharing similarities, gaining advice of others. And I truly, truly believe that some of the advice that I've got from people has actually been better than the ones that I've received from my consultant, my GPs, my rheumatologist and my specialist. It's one thing learning through a textbook, and it's one thing actually going through it. So I really hope I'm able to share my tips, my tricks, the things that I've learned over time with this journey with others, and they're able to implement them in their lives and make their process and journeys a little bit easier. Thank you all for sharing these stories, sharing your tips with me, sharing everything that you've been through. And honestly, thank you for listening when I felt completely alone and had no one with me. I've been able to connect with strangers who have literally become like a little family now. And literally I have like a little mum sometimes messaging saying, you know, you need to rest, calm down. And it's incredible the amount of support one can offer when they really don't know you. So thank you, and thank you for everybody that's helping me raise awareness of lupus.